Well, I made a video about Stanley maybe a couple months back when he was doing shows, and it seemed like his team was forcing him to keep doing these outings. And in the video, they had him even he couldn't remember how to spell his name or something. They were spelling it for him. I don't know. And at that time, I was just like, Stanley's basically on his way out. Just let him relax and live his final days. And sadly, it's 11/12/2018. Stanley, excuse me, that was rude, has moved on. It's weird. It like blew up all over my Facebook feed. Like crazy people taking it like super crazy hard, like losing it. But I don't know. Like, I think one thing kind of bugs me is a lot of people more know him now because of the. Can I get this? There we go. People more know him now because of the movies, I feel, than when I was like 5 going to our local convention where he was there just signing. At that time, it was 1990, I believe, 1991. The Marvel Universe card set came out, and I remember this card was just a cool card of a mix of all his characters or just Marvel characters alone. But at that show, it was going for like $40. Back then, money, of course, is a little bit different now. But I remember that card was like just going crazy amounts of money. But we got to see him and meet him, and no one cared. People were mainly in line to get a picture of Spider-Man who was with Stanley. Again, I'm a 5-year-old kid. Jim Lee was there. So this is a thing that I've seen through my whole life, and you appreciated it. Becoming an adult, you know more about the history of Marvel. You know about Jack Kirby kind of got screwed out of a lot of things, and people wanted Stanley to acknowledge more of Jack Kirby's input, but that's something that I feel we just have to ignore at this moment. The whole story, I hope, will be told someday. I think a biopic about just Marvel with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee would be amazing. And hopefully pretty accurate to make it clear to us what went down. Not saying Stan Lee's a bad guy at all, but just I know when people think Marvel, like, people think, oh yeah, he owns Marvel. And Stan Lee has never owned Marvel. He's been, editor, writer, all that stuff. He's created some of the best characters in the world that we can never take that away from him. And this isn't me trying to be like, oh, whatever, Stanley died. It's not. It's a horrible loss. But here's my thing. We saw this on the wall, We saw it coming. It sucks, but I think we need to be happy. He is resting now. He was miserable without his wife. Everyone that was visiting him, from Tom McFarlane to Kevin Smith, they would say that he was having a really hard time not having his wife there. And being married, I could only imagine being married for so long and not having that companion there. They usually go not too far after. So, I mean, I think it's not like, oh, this is a good thing, He was clearly in some kind of pain. He was getting sick a lot. He had leukemia. Not leukemia, I'm sorry. He kept getting like some kind of flu, I believe. Ammonia. It was several things, but it definitely, he's a 95-year-old man. But it's just crazy because it blows up all over the internet, and everyone's like, oh, I miss you. And then there are guys that, there are totally guys that I click with that are like usually older than me, but they're like comic heads, they've been around forever and they get it, so it's just sucky, I think, when people are like, oh man, what a bummer, and like, I'm not gonna see him at the end of the credit, or at the special cameo scene and stuff. And I think Stanley was more than a cameo guy. It was a little cute thing to see, and that's how my son knows Stan Lee's, through like the Lego games and stuff like that. I think it's better to be remembered for his characters and what he did with him, and he was proud of how people expanded on his characters, making them better even than he felt he could. Because of course, in time, Spider-Man had to change a lot, and in the movies he changed, and Captain America and so forth. But I think one of the biggest things that I think we all remember about Stan Lee is he projected what the world was going through the comics. I mean, shit, in Mallrats, he almost covers that in a humorous way. About like how he dealt with life through Doctor Doom, and he wore a mask, and all this because of this, and Thing, the Outer Shell, and all this stuff, But it's true. I mean, X-Men was telling the story of Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X. It was very clear, and he made a video a few years back and talk about how Marvel's going to always reflect on what's going on today. And I think that's very important, and that's very important for us as adults that may have different opinions as far as politics and all that. When we read that, it is a common ground, because we all, the guys that are talking about him, we all are comic fans, and it's something that I want my son to always to keep reading. I'm always worried about comics dying out, because I think the digital age is getting bigger and bigger, and they push it really hard because they can make money that way as well. It probably saves them more money, to be honest with you. But I will always want a comic in hand. I don't like reading it on a pad or anything like that. I like opening it, and I hope we could keep that going, and I hope Marvel still... It's been kind of in the gutter for me for a while. Not the greatest stories. Some are good, but, there's times they get lazy, and some stories are not as good as others. It happens, but I hope they at least stick with that mentality that he had, where he reflected on the real world and put a mirror up to it and showed it us in a comic form. But it, overall, it's a sad day, but it's a day of, we're lucky to have such a character with such imagination like Stan Lee. We were very fortunate, and I think we need to take that away from all this, and the fact that he was more than just a cameo guy. This guy created worlds, and working with Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko. I mean, if you imagine the stuff him and Steve Ditko did with Doctor Strange, my cousin's one of the biggest Doctor Strange fans out there. He has all the older books, and you go through them, and it was just beyond our time and years, and I wasn't even alive then, but beyond what people, so psychedelic. People felt like, you had to be on drugs to understand it, but then as you got, you're an adult, and you look at it now, you realize they were just ahead of the game. Not saying DC or whoever's making comics weren't doing as good, but I'm just specifically talking about Stan Lee. So it is a tough day in the superhero comic world. This whole last couple months, man, have been just really bad. We have these fires going like crazy. Me losing my best friend to suicide. One of our shops caught on fire next to our shop, so it smells like smoke. My wife's wallet got stolen, and they used my business card. Just really bad things you don't like seeing. But this is one thing that it sucks, but I'm at peace with it. He's 95. He lived a long life. He conquered so much and got to live such an extraordinary life. We should be very happy for him and always appreciate him and always continue to talk about him and keep, that in our dialogue for comics and cards. Stan the Man Lee. I will always cherish the fact I got to meet him and talk to him. And as they try to rush me away, he still kept talking to me about my tattoos. And he was in good spirits then. And that was really nice to see that. And that was probably like 8-9 years ago. But it was nice to see someone that did so much to a world that you're into and you live in, and it's on your skin. You got Spider-Man and Cap on your skin because of this guy. It would not be there. So that was cool, and I had him signed, not like a fancy print or anything. There was just a really cool picture I liked that was a bunch of old comic panels, and I really liked that they threw Luke Cage on it, because I love Luke Cage, and I'm like, they never throw him on there. So my favorite Wolverine, of course, was on there, and Spider-Man was on there. There's just panels, squares, and I thought it looked very artistic. So if I got a really good office one of these days, it'll look good in there. I have it framed, but the frame's probably all beat up. But you know, and the thing that I'll leave with was, his attitude was always awesome. You know, they're trying to rush everybody to go through. Again, I don't do the whole pay for someone to sign. I don't know if I have it over. I don't know where it went, but we have the card that it's for the drawing of you got to meet him, and that's how I got to meet him at Comic-Con. No money spent, you know, none of that weird stuff where they just look dead inside and have to take these pictures. I hate that. I think that's a waste of money. But, you know, so I'm talking, and they're trying to rush still, and then, you know, they're like, well, where would you like Stan Lee to sign it? For me, I'm like, Jesus, let the guy ask. But I'm like, well, kind of pointing, I'm like, you're gonna, and that's when he seen my tattoos. I'm like, you're gonna want to sign next to Spider-Man, aren't you? He's like, damn straight. And then he's signed away, and my wife took a bunch of pictures of him going like, oh, looking at my tattoos and stuff. And that was just cool. It was just a cool moment, a cool story. And then I'm glad I'm going to be able to tell that to my kids, and he can tell his kids, because Marvel will always be big, will always blow up and never go away. So with that, just a quick video about Stan Lee, remembering him, appreciating him, and he's at rest, and we will not forget him ever. Excelsior. Enough said.